His life came to a halt the moment her heart stopped beating. His wife had been everything to him, the only light in his world. After the funeral, when the last of the mourners had left, the house sank into a suffocating silence. He tried to distract himself, old books, music, even repairing parts of the house, but nothing could fill the void. Every corner reminded him of her, how they laughed together in the kitchen, the sound of her footsteps on the creaky floors. But now, all that was left was an empty house and endless, sleepless nights. A month had passed since her death. One night, as he lay in bed, unable to sleep again, he heard a faint noise. A rustling. He lifted his head from the pillow, straining to listen. The sound was coming from her favorite spot, the chair by the window. But he knew it couldn't be. She was gone. The next day, he decided to move the furniture around. Maybe changing the surroundings would keep the memories at bay. He moved the chair to the wall, put away her photos, but the following morning, the chair was back at the window, as if he had never touched it. Days went by, but the rustling sounds and strange occurrences only grew. Curtains that he'd left closed were now open in the morning. His bed, which he carefully made every day, was always disturbed when he returned to it. He began doubting his sanity, for every time something changed, it was connected to her habits, her things. One night, he felt a cold touch on his hand. He jolted awake, heart racing, but the room was empty. Still, the icy sensation lingered on his skin, as if someone had been there, watching. Each night, the presence grew more tangible. First, it was just a faint stirring of air. Then, a barely audible sigh. And soon, he began hearing footsteps. Every evening, as the silence deepened, the footsteps would start from the hallway, near the door. They crept slowly toward his bedroom, and he would lie there, motionless under the covers, too afraid to breathe. His heart pounded as the footsteps stopped just outside his door. He knew it was her, but he couldn't bring himself to open it. A year after her death, he couldn't bear it any longer. That night, when the footsteps came again, he made up his mind. Clenching his fists, he got out of bed and threw open the door. Nothing greeted him but the empty hall. Nothing, and cold. But something wasn't right. The room, it had changed. It was just as it had been when she was alive. Everything was back in its place. The chair by the window, her favorite books on the shelf, even a cup of half-finished tea on the table. And then he heard her voice. Soft, calling his name. He turned slowly, and there she was. Alive. Just as she had been that last day. But her eyes, they were empty. Dark, like the night sky, without a trace of life. You wanted me to come back, she whispered. He wanted to scream, but the words stuck in his throat. The next moment, the room began to distort, walls trembled, objects lost their shape. Her eyes blazed with cold fire, and the air grew heavier with each passing second. He felt the very fabric of reality slipping away, as if the house and everything in it was dissolving into darkness. She reached out her hand, and frozen with terror, he shut his eyes. But the cold seeped through his skin. Now, we'll always be together. Her voice was the last thing he heard before the night swallowed him whole. When the neighbors noticed he hadn't been seen in days, they went to check the house. But it was empty. All they found was the old chair by the window and a cup of cold tea on the table. No sign of the man. Only the silence, thick and heavy, like the dark that pressed against the windows.